I'm Anders Bjartnes. I'm director in the Norwegian Climate Foundation, and I'm going to lead this session, talking about how we can communicate about very important and challenging issues we've been into earlier also today. Our climate is dramatically changing, affecting millions of people all over the world. Floods, droughts, fires, the adverse signs and results of human activity are many and extremely serious. The message from IPCC is clear: we have to change the direction. If we don't, the world will become a very different place. In this session, we shall look at how stories are told and learn from people that have very interesting stories to tell. We have to create a positive narrative. Bjørn Haugland from DNV told us this morning. Let's see if this session can bring us forward. The keynote speaker is Gunhild Stordalen. She's a climate and health advocate and will tell us about a project which has grown from a breakfast seminar to a huge global network in a few months, the EAT initiative. Please welcome Gunhild Stordalen.
Thanks a lot. I think the title for this panel is it's timely. Action for the planet now. And climate change is inevitably one of the really major threats for humanity today. However, despite the increasing body of scientific knowledge and a variety of existing solutions and technologies, there is still lack of progress in international climate policy. So why don't the international leaders act? The Prime Minister of Luxembourg once answered this question like this: we all know what to do. We just don't know how to get re-elected once we have done it. And climate change is complex, and so is climate psychology. Because climate change is abstract, it's a long-term problem with late onset symptoms, but it requires urgent action and upfront investment. And we as human beings, unfortunately, we are short-term thinkers. We are suffering from myopia. And gloomy scenarios of record high levels of CO2 in the atmosphere, or melting polar ice caps, polar bears on icebergs, it's not likely enough to make us change behavior. So, what are the best methods of persuasion that will lead to concrete action? Ingrid Stange, she is a true change maker. And just as her, I believe that new forms of partnerships are key to change. But I also strongly believe that we have to reframe the issue. At the end of the day, most of us, unfortunately, we tend to care more about personal health and health in general than environment. And this is a quite interesting example on exactly that. Norway and Sweden, quite comparable in culture, and the same strategies should probably work. In Norway, we raised the issue of palm oil. The Rainforest Foundation did a great job, but they linked rainforest or palm oil production not only to deforestation, but also to health. They said, okay, saturated fat, it's bad for your health. In Sweden, however, they only talked about deforestation and poor orangutans. And what happened in these two countries? In Norway, in a few years' time, we managed to reduce the consumption of palm oil by 66%. Dramatic decrease. In Sweden, almost nothing happened. And I think one of the major differences, and the explanation for this, is exactly the framing of the issue. Linking to health had a different effect. And climate change. Climate change is a major health issue. not only with dramatic consequences for global health, but also with respect to co-benefits. Because it turns out, and it's becoming increasingly clear, that a lot of the mitigation strategies will have significant health co-benefits. And in contrast to the long-term effects on climate, these strategies will have almost immediate effects on human health. Furthermore, I think we have to start connecting the dots. And climate change is not an isolated problem. Climate change is indeed strongly related and interconnected to other major global challenges. And a lot has to do with what we put on our plates. Indeed, some of today's greatest challenges, including climate change, are related to the food we eat and how we produce that food. Agriculture and the global food system is the biggest single emitter of greenhouse gas emissions, accounting for somewhat 20 to 30% of the global emissions. It's the leading cause of deforestation, change in land use, and biodiversity loss. And the global food system accounts for somewhat 70% of human freshwater use and is a major source of water pollution. Furthermore, unsustainable fishing practices deplete stocks of species and also cause wide disruptions of marine ecosystems. And at the same time, 30 to 50% of all food produced globally never gets eaten. It's either wasted or lost down the food value chain. And then it's quite dramatic with the estimates claiming that with the current trends in population growth and changing diets, we have to produce 60% more food within mid-century. But the global food system is not only a huge environmental challenge, it's also causing major health challenges. And the global burden of disease has changed dramatically during the last few decades. Today, more people, they die from obesity than from hunger. And chronic diseases such as heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes type 2, has become the leading cause of global death. And such diseases are not longer a Western phenomenon. No, indeed 80% of the premature death before the age of 60 occurs now in low and middle income countries. And unhealthy diets, which also tend to be most unsustainable, is together with harmful use of alcohol, tobacco and inactivity, is the main driver of these epidemics. So, in order to feed 9 billion healthy people on a stable planet, the global food system obviously has to change. But what does it take? We clearly need more interdisciplinary knowledge on the field of food health and sustainability. But knowledge alone, evidence alone, has probably never really changed the world. So in order to transform knowledge into concrete action, business has to become a significant part of the solution, not only be considered as part of the problem. And capitalistic forces might be the only forces strong enough to create that change fast enough. However, in order to operate and innovate in more sustainable and healthy directions, business needs clear frames, and they need long-term predictability. So we also need bold and visionary politicians on board. So I believe this double, triple helix is key to change. I believe this is part of the recipe for change. And this is indeed the overarching idea of the EAT initiative. And as Anders said, EAT started out as a 2-hour local breakfast seminar to be hosted in Oslo. And in less than a year, it has grown into a global network and a global initiative. Indeed, it came from business. It started, the idea was born in Nordic Choice Hotels. We started thinking, how can we improve our sustainability in the core operation? And like 70% of our ecological footprint is related to the food and beverage sector. So we started to ask, how can we serve food that is more healthy, more sustainable, produced, good for the animals, good for the producers of the food, and so on. And quickly, I realized there's almost no answers. What is good for everything? So then I called a good friend, Professor Johan Rockström, which is the director of Stockholm Resilience Center, and asked whether he would help me in put together a panel of expert, multidisciplinary panel, to come up with some more answers to this question. And then we started to make some phone calls, a few emails, and a lot of reaching out to different experts in the field of food health and sustainability. And in a few months, we got these people willing to accept to sit on this board. And as you see, it's mainly academics, but we also have a few from the business side, Lee Havel, which is the managing director of World Economic Forum, and we have Michael Bucker in Google, and then we have the politicians, which is Jonas Gahr Støre, and also José María Figueres, which is the former president of Costa Rica. Then we needed some academic partners, some R&D partners to help us develop and do the research. And this is the institutions, some of the world's most renowned institutions that makes up the research cluster. And members of the advisory board are affiliated to these institutions. Then we also needed partners. So we reached out to strategic partners, which are NGOs and trade organizations and others. And we had invited R&D partners to assist in the scientific collaboration. We also reached out to foundations to fund the scientific part, because that has to be neutral and objective. And we also needed media and other partners. So now, not all of these are confirmed yet, but we are still working on it. And then I will show you a short overview of how we are organized. It's owned by my foundation, Stordalen Foundation, and Stockholm Resilience Center, which really takes on the holistic perspective, is the main academic partner. And then we have the advisory board, which you just saw, that oversees all the scientific content, but also the outcome, and are helping with developing the strategies. And then we have the upcoming forum, which will be in Stockholm on May 26th and 27th, and that will gather around 400 or 500 leading experts from all over the world. Bill Clinton will be the keynote, but that's actually icing on the cake. The idea with the forum is actually not only to host another conference. The objective is to capture input from all the delegates. So that's why it's by invitation only, and we are inviting those people that really can contribute. And the tangible outcome of the initiative is, among other, scientific publications, but also to come up with some practical guidelines relevant for consumers and industry to help us or to empower the consumers in order to do better decision making. And then it's very important to spread the stories of success. So we are setting up some e-talks that will broadcast good cases, which is both sustainable and making profits. And then we are setting up 3 different awards that also aims to acknowledge companies and organizations that are really making step forward in the right direction. So, to sum up, how do we create change for a more sustainable future? That was the initial question I was going to try to ask, or try to answer. First, just as Inger Stange has realized, I believe we need new partnerships, new innovative partnerships for change. And second, I think we must reframe the issue. We need to link it to something that is relevant and close to people's hearts. And then we obviously have to start connecting the dots. And we have to map out the interconnected challenges, but also the co-benefits and the synergies by common solutions. And finally, I think it's a very true saying that hell doesn't sell. We need to broadcast the stories of success. And we need to share best practice. We need to lift up business, to lead by example. And we have to show the business society that corporate social responsibility actually also represents enormous corporate opportunities. Thank you.